Honestly unbalanced.
Right, let's start kind of in the deep end. Okay, not literally. I know
Yep.
deep end is actually something you're doing separately. No, not deep end the
Yeah,
organization, but
metaphorically.
yeah, metaphoric deep end of why do men typically not want to get involved with anything to do like with their mental health, with their self-development, etc. Like, and what I'm saying there is a sweeping generalization, but I was actually listening to something by the Oxford Advantage guy, Patrick McCone, yesterday, and he was
Nice.
saying back in the day, he used to uh, he used to do these courses for anxiety, and like he worked with like 3,000 people on these courses.
Mm,
But because anxiety was in the title, there was never any men. Men just didn't get involved. Not one
yeah.
man in all that time wanted to
Yeah.
be on the course. So what is it about men not wanting to get involved in stuff that would actually help them?
Yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, I've heard that story with Patrick McKeown. He changed the title, didn't he, to get more
Yeah.
men to
Well,
get more men
that's why he
involved.
created Oxford Advantage, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think what comes up when you ask that is what comes up initially is the word like weakness, and why I say that is I feel like we associate as men any sort of kind of not being okay, any sort of not being the kind of like strong, dependable one. If there's anything like teetering away from that kind of metronome um, is is a is vulnerability, and I feel like we associate vulnerability with weakness. So like it's just an unconscious thing, and I think research shows that the biggest driver in shame in men is feeling weak. So if we feel weak, we feel shameful. So it's like this knock-on effect. So, okay, if anything, that kind of knocks us off that pedestal of being like a strong, dependable man, we feel weak, and then that brings vulnerability, that brings shame, you know. So it's kind of this like knock-on effect. That's kind of what that's what I believe, and that's kind of what research backs up as well, I'd say.
And what do you think like is needed to persuade men, whether it's like subconsciously or overtly, to get involved in things that will help them grow and help them kind of sort their stuff out? Because it is a crisis, isn't it? And so many men are killing
Yeah,
themselves. I
100%.
saw this like really sad reel. Well, there's so many reels of like men in their like last video of them before they ended up uh, committing suicide, and it was an Australian reel of just all these boots from all these men that had killed themselves that year. Like everyone who was part of the charity was asked to bring their relatives' boots, and it was just this field full of men's boots and a photo next to them. And it kills me
Yeah.
seeing that kind of stuff. So, what? How do we get men involved in talking or doing stuff that helps?
I think the language we use when we're talking about these kind of spaces and this stuff is really important, and that's with my retreats, the men's retreats we run, myself and the guy I run it with, Josh. He's a copywriter, and so he not that's not his only trade. That's one of the things he does. So he's very articulate with his wording, and that's what we're massive on because you see a lot you see a lot of stuff, and this is why I think I'm a fan of your work because when the way you work with the way you talk about yoga, I feel like you take away a lot of the kind of like nuance around it, which obviously everything has its nuance and has its place, but it's trying to be approachable. You know, it's trying to be how my role, my goal is to use my background as a professional sportsman in this new kind of it's not even esoteric anymore because I work in the performance space as well. But to how can we get these men involved? The average man who goes to the down to the pub and have a drink with his mates, which is fine, but how can we also get him to entertain a bit more introspective work? You know, a bit more meditation, yoga, breath work. So I think we need to take the kind of woo woo away from it. Not that I've got anything against woo woo. I like me dose every now and then. But yeah, it's the language we use, so I think like changes in terminology to kind of entice them because I feel as soon as they hear something, it seems a bit out there. Like, no, not for me. I know that
Mm.
for a fact. So it's just like, how can we create a language which is more accessible to men? If that makes sense.
Like completely. I think that's what we need to do, like with yoga as well, and anything. We just try and make it without degrading what it is. We
Hmm.
change it slightly to get people involved. And it's far
Yeah,
better you slightly water it down and people do
yeah,
it than you keep it in its purest form and all these
Yeah.
people that benefit from it never get involved. I'd rather
Yeah.
people get involved in 1% than 0%.
Yeah. Totally agree.
That is my goal. And like, where do your men like come from? Like, I've seen you run lots of kind of successful men's wellness retreats, and I've always debated myself: shall I do something for men? My wife has been saying it for years. Lots of people have said it to me, and I've just thought, like, where would the men come from that want to do that with me? Like, unless I went to like a CrossFit gym and kind of got myself like undercover there for a year. I don't know, like where I know
Infiltrated.
having a few little conversations between sets. I don't know
Yeah.
where I get the men from. So where do you find the men come from that finally reach you? And have they all met you in person, or have some of them come blind just from what they see on social media?
Yeah, so it's been a slog to get to where it is now. You know, we're 4 or 5 years into it, 20 plus retreats, and like the last 15 we've sold them out. You know, but the first two I lost money, and like just about broke even on the other ones. And a big part of that is my Josh, who runs it with me. He was a massive part in helping it be a bit more like fiscally. Um, yeah, doable. But initially, so it started with a 1 day workshop, and then it kind of built into retreats. So initially, I'd say it probably just came from my kind of social media. People who kind of knew about me as a rugby player, they see my transition into what I'm doing now, and thought, oh, that looks quite different, quite interesting. And but also with that, I also got a lot of stick. Like you can imagine what my teammates were calling me. I won't say it here, and like, yeah, like the look I get when I'd say it was a mentor treat, they'd be like, well, that's weird. Why is that? Like, what's that about? So I had to like go through that for a long time, and just picking up people where I can. I'd say the thing that really brought the people in and still brings the people in. I got fortunate enough. I not last year, the year before, 2023. We're in 25, aren't we? Yeah,
Yeah.
we had some really good press. We had a journalist from the Guardian and a journalist from the Times in the same year, within like 4 months of each other. And there was a BBC Sport online article. But the other two articles were really good for us. They kind of like the journalists had a really good experience and documented it like super authentically. And yeah, it just got it out there to like to the masses, and like people were starting to see and go, oh, this sounds like something I'd enjoy. And talking about wording, what I'll say at different times in the retreat, well, maybe at the start when I'm addressing the guys, like I just want to normalize men being able to just take some time. Not I want to normalize. I want to be a part of a movement that can normalize men taking time away from themselves to prioritize the physical and mental health, and like kind of stepping away from I need to go mega loaf for 4 days to blow off some steam. Do you know what I mean? Can we actually can we invest in ourselves to take 4 days, 3, 4 days out to do this? Because I feel like as men, we find that really almost selfish. I know a lot of guys
Yeah, no,
feel
completely.
selfish, like they've got families, etc. So it's a big investment, but like you can't pour from an empty cup, can you? So like it's taking that time to just to be there, like even in between the activities we do, the journaling, the reflections. A lot of men come who are maybe going through divorce. They are in a pivotal point in their life where they have to make some big decisions. A lot's going on, and they're just coming just for that time for themselves. So that's what we're seeing, as well as like that's bringing in. We're seeing guys just coming. Like, I just need some time to myself to
Mm.
reconfigure, you know. So, and that's what I want it to be. I don't want it, but I also don't want it to be. Um, you have to come because shit's hit the fan. You know, I don't want it to be
It's not
um,
crisis center.
exactly. It's not crisis center. We're not therapists, but I want it to be a preventative measure. You know, you're taking preventative measures to prioritize yourself and like yeah, mitigate like burnout, etc. So
Do you
yeah,
know, I think that selfish thing you mentioned is so important. Like, I think the role of men in society has changed. And like back in the day, and this isn't right, the man would go to work, then go to the pub, then come back, go to bed, maybe watch TV, and that's it. And maybe maybe change your nappy here and there. And that's kind of what a man did. And they had all the like lots of responsibility, financially, etc. They were the head of the household. And again, there's lots wrong with that. But I think the kind of the modern conscious man, especially that modern dads, have evolved to want to be like a massive part of their kids' life, want to be the nappies, want to share childcare, but
Mhm.
also wants to work, etc. And also has this kind of ingrained deep sense of like needing to look after and keep everyone safe and watch
Mhm.
out for danger. And they're trying to do so much now that, yeah, as you say, to go away for a day would seem selfish. It seems like letting go of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I think that crisis is bigger than ever because men have their role in society has changed, good, which is good, but perhaps their upbringing and maybe part of their nature hasn't caught up with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you say, there's so many pros to to like the new kind of like gender equality that we see. But with that, it's left a lot of men, especially younger men, in this kind of like limbo. Or not that they wanted to like you say, go out work, put the feet up until bedtime. The missus do everything. It just kind of like, for example, I after one of my workshops, it was actually, yeah, I spoke at an event. I had like a younger man, but he was about 21. He came up to me and he just looked a bit lost, and we were just chatting, and he said, I just don't know what to do. He said, I've got a partner, but like I hold the door open for her, and she has a go at me, and like I don't know what to do. How am I supposed to act? So in that sense, I think we need more. I think we need like definite, not necessarily definitions, but what are the characteristics? We'll help. So what we try doing the retreats, and it's an open conversation. I don't tell anyone what to do. Or Josh, we're just creating a space for kind of these conversations to happen. I'm trying to work it out myself. So we're trying to create a space where we can talk about what did a healthy with masculinity in a bit of, it's a controversial topic. Like you say masculinity and it can be provocative for some people. But I feel we're very confused. We're very confused with what masculinity is. And it's like, well, what are the good qualities as a man should I be trying to embody? Should I be trying to portray to my family and those around me? So, and I feel like I personally feel like it's completely fine to hold the door open for your partner. And I know,
For
uh,
anyone, that's a human thing as well, isn't
yeah,
it? I'd hold the
exactly.
door open for you, and you don't need any help opening the door.
Yeah. Yeah, you know,
It's
you're right. You're right. And yeah, and like, and still kind of, I think we letting go of some of the always, but keeping hold of some of the strong traits of what it means to be like like a compassionate and purposeful for man, you know. And I feel like that's what's in the up in the yeah, there's a debate about that at the minute because you're on your end of the spectrum, you've got your Andrew Tates of the world, and like so younger men because of these issues, are looking at these people. There's not too many positive role models out there. Like, well, what I believe anyway. So yeah, it's kind of like how do we salvage the kind of sinking ship that what people are trying to make out is masculinity because we need it, you know, it's a fundamental part of who we are, and we're inseparable from it. Which is like, well, what are the integral traits of masculinity, and how do we then work towards that? It's almost like we need like you know like the Stoics had like the four virtues. You know, I feel like
yeah.
we need some virtues that we can work towards.
I think the issue with Andrew Tate, 'cause I'm scared. I'm a dad of two boys,
Yeah,
and I'm scared. Like if my son is told that hold the door open is bad, that he's innately bad for being a man, then he and naturally he will go to the person who tells him he's okay and he's
yeah,
good, which is the assholes like Andrew Tate, who is an asshole. Okay, for me in every sense. Maybe there's some snippets of nice stuff. There's snippets of nice stuff that everyone has said about
yeah,
in the past, but that's the issue. Is there's no middle ground. If all the good stuff is bad, then if there's only
yeah,
these people telling them they're good as men,
yeah,
then all of them are going to become like that, and that's my fear. And maybe it is that the positive role models aren't vocally in your face telling you how to be a man. Like my role
yeah.
models, I've got some printed out here actually. Not for this podcast, but like men that inspire me. Who have we got? We've got Terry Pratchett. He's dead, so he's not like a role model anymore. Albert Camus, okay, not author. I'm trying to. This is no order. Naval Ravikant. So he's kind of good. So he's an angel investor that actually is actually trying to be a philosopher to modern life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of people that are actually alive that are useful. Uh, like even in something like the UFC, like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, like
Yeah.
nicest human being in the world, but they're not in your face telling men how to live. And that
Good point.
Keanu Reeves, for instance, again,
Yeah.
nicest human being. And that I think is the issue that the moderate men, the men that are actually living well,
Uh,
aren't in your face telling the young people how to live. And maybe that's what we need more of.
that's a really, I've never actually thought about it like that. And like you say, we in our both sides, we have our discussions in private about this stuff. Like we're not like broadcasting that. So yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, like the those men we're speaking of, are they're just doing, aren't they? They're embodying that, and like people they're inspiring people in their own ways. But like you said, they're not putting out like dogmatic, um,
Mm.
kind of like ways to be, etc. Where and that doesn't get as much it doesn't get as much attention, does it, as the former, that we spoke about. But yeah, it's just kind of for me. I see it as so when we have a retreat, we have like 15 guys, and if we can make some sort of positive impact, and when I say we, I don't even mean us. We just create, as you know, I know you run retreats as well. We just create the container for what the people need for some of the practices. Okay, you might want to try that. You want to try this. But like, a lot of the free time in between is where a lot of the magic happens, the conversation that the guys are having, etc. And if we create the right container for them to have a positive experience and gain some clarity, maybe a bit more clarity on where the next step is, go back and like want to be a best version of self, for themselves, but also for the family. Then you're creating a ripple effect, aren't you? Like you're not just helping one man, you're helping him be a better version to his family, and hoping that that kind of ripple effect goes on. So I think it's just for me in my immediate in control. What can I do? How can I make a positive? How can I make a positive impact? And that's just what I'm focused on. And sometimes it feels like it's a bit of a hard slog. But when you get, as you, I'm guessing you would have as well. When you get those emails and like that I don't share, by the way, you probably would have saw like people like saying like you've like made a big impact in their life, etc. Yeah, it's worth it, and it's like, yeah, and this is like definitely, I feel that I'm on the right path here. So
Nice.
yeah, it's just turning up, isn't it, and just doing what you can do.
And maybe getting beyond the cringe. Because like my view is always like so many people have said to me I should do more in the space and like vocally. And I always find it being like, oh, I don't want to be preachy and telling people how to live their
Mm,
life, etc. I find it a
I
bit
get that.
cringe when people, but maybe that's what like decent human beings need to do more of. Be more vocal, even if it doesn't feed the algorithm as well. Let's come to retreats now. Like when most people think of men's retreats, okay, I think people have the image of like running in circles, chanting, drums, images of like I've seen the well, my background is boxing, like the worst, like sparring,
Yeah,
like in a circle,
yeah,
screaming, crying.
yeah.
Is that all going on in your retreats?
Absolutely not. And I can't stand that. I really can't. That's definitely a trigger of mine. Yeah, you just unearthed it. Yeah, like look, if they're getting results, with the men they're working with, like fair play. I don't discount anyone for doing it, but I just think it's all a bit lame, Adam. If I'm being honest, they all follow the warrior magician, lover, king archetypes on the retreat. I'm just like, be original. Like,
Hmm.
just do something, do something else. But when I said to you, using a language and approachability, like how is the average man who drinks for like 5, 6 pints on a Friday gonna look at these men with one hand on 20 men with one hand on a man in the middle while he's crying his eyes out?
With the
Like
shaman
how
and with the shaman and feathered in the middle.
yeah, exactly. Like how is that going to entice him? Like it's not. And like, look, I'm trying not to diss it because I when I first come into this world, but like I was pretty out there as well. I'm guessing you've been there. We've all been there. Do you know what I
I've
mean?
had like the long hair, the marla beads,
Yeah, yeah,
the Halloween
exactly.
pants around East
Yeah,
London.
exactly. That's what I mean. We've all been there. So I'm not. I'm not knocking it, but then you realize kind of there's a middle way, there's a middle path. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be, you can't be too up there because you're not grounded. You know, but you don't want to be obviously too far the other way either. So it's a balance.
Mm.
We need to live this life. You need to pay your taxes. You know, like you need to be a balanced like man and grounded. So no, to answer your question, we don't do any of that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about when you see like the boxing and stuff. I'm like, that's not necessary. Do you know, it's
I
real.
quite like that though. I feel like I would enjoy a bit of it
Yeah.
for the wrong for completely the wrong reasons.
I know what you're saying, but like we just like do like normal challenge like make putting getting guys. The fire circle is a big part of our retreat, and like having like 15 new guys sit there and have to talk in front of a group that he never met before. That's terrifying for a lot of them. So like you don't need to do that kind of stuff. Obviously, we do challenging stuff. We do jujitsu, but not in like that kind of like the way they do. We have a coach come in, we go through practices. Obviously, no general fitness, my pool training, surfing. Obviously we do the other like more introspective things as well. But we do like physically challenging stuff, but it just doesn't need to be like dramatized so much, you know?
Mm. I think that's a key word there. Like my view is if it works for someone, wonderful. Right. Do the thing that works for you, and there needs to be something for everyone. But I agree that for like the average bloke, that is too much. And I
Yeah.
think it's much like the yoga class that somehow kind of brings in lots of random cultural stuff from other places. There were
Mm.
yoga class that suddenly then there was shamanism, and then there's crystals involved, then tarot cards, etc. Like nothing wrong with that if that works for you.
Yeah.
But some of these men's groups remind me of that. Like taking the most dramatic or visually dramatic stuff from different disciplines and cultures and kind of merging it together. And I think the issue is the most profound long-term change that someone can experience isn't ever dramatic. It never looks cool. It's kind of
No.
the honest, as you say, real life integration that
Yeah.
that has that effective change. And I've seen so many people that go on like yoga trainings and go for 3 weeks and they come back wearing white and with their beads. And then 3 weeks later, they're just their normal self, or even worse, because they've got a
Yeah.
sense of spiritual superiority. And again, that's
Yeah.
a sweeping generalization. But I think we need long-term work. We need the normal stuff, or at least not everyone does. At least some people need that normal kind of conversations, and that's powerful. There's a TV show actually. Maybe it's not the best example called Loudermilk. You heard of it?
No.
So it's like a dark American comedy. One of the best things I've watched for you. I think it's on Netflix. And it's like an Alcohol Anonymous group. Uh, and it's just a group of the most random men. Like one of them's a con artist, one of them is just like a pervert, and like, but it's again, it's kind of just the most extreme of normal men
Yeah.
supporting each other, and it's just so heartening to see. And not everyone needs that kind of group of people, but I think most men need
I
a
see.
group of people.
Yeah.
Loudermilk, it's absolutely hilarious and fantastic. Yeah, it's the best show I've seen in years.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Moving on from that. Sorry, having some water. Let's talk. Let's kind of have a look with a throwback into your transition to this from your previous
Mm.
life. So you were a professional rugby player, lots of teams, lots of trophies, etc. How did this kind of like self-reflection, the kind of the wellness world, the breath work, start to appear in your life? Was it afterwards? Was it as career was ending? Was it during? Or was it because I know you're still vegan?
No,
You're not,
not
but you
vegan.
were for a period, weren't you?
Yes.
And was
Yes.
it near that time when you were into veganism wellness kind of came on board? Tell me about that transition.
It's a bit of a long story. Have you got
No.
I'll summarize. I'll break it down as quick as you. And it's quite a funny journey. For me to like be sat here in Newquay now from like the north, like industrial northwest, where I was playing rugby, and well, I'm around the world as well. But yeah, so I'd say vegan. Veganism came, and then that kind of put me in the spotlight. I think I was 25 at the time, 26. I was playing for the Leeds Rhinos, who are like in up north. They're a pretty big team, one of the biggest teams. in the north of England, and probably one of the world's well-known teams in England. So the reason I say that is because they it's one of the only cities in the country where rugby is massive. Rugby league is massive. So it's kind of like you've kind of like people know you in Leeds. You know, it's not. But if you're in Wigan or you're in like another town in England, like it's not a big a deal. Do you know what I mean?
You'd
But
be
like at Leeds,
recognised on the street,
yeah,
and the fact
essentially,
you're what 6'3", 6'4" helps as well.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, big ginger beard. Um, so yeah, like, they kind of got out through that, and obviously veganism at the time it was on the up, and the obviously veganism is not like it's like say like it's this kind of a insidious organization, but the like kind of big brands in the plant based space were looking for ambassadors. You know, they wanted kind of like athletes who were coming out, like saying the vegan to kind of like help spearhead it and stuff like that. So a bit of like a bit of a popularity came through that. And that kind of that was giving me this persona away from the rugby field. Then I had like I had my own song because for being a vegan by the fans and stuff like this. So that was going on. And at the same time, I started to get into meditation, and I got into it out of necessity, just because I was just like I was not I wouldn't say I was off the rails, but I was drinking far too much. Um, I even as an athlete, so we'd play Friday, and then I'd go out Friday, Saturday probably, and then I just wake up because we wouldn't be in training until Monday sometimes. So I just wake up with the most crushing like anxiety, and obviously that'd be a fear, classic. But I had it really bad, and it kept happening. I knew it wasn't for me. I was like this. I remember thinking this isn't who I am, but I was like, well, I don't know who, but I don't know who I am, who's saying this. You know, if there's a voice saying this is who am I, and who's the one that can observe this kind of this behavior, and so I can't. I can't actually remember, but I heard about it. I was like, I'm going to give it a go. So I started to meditate, and as you know, breath work and meditation like synonymous. You know, it comes hand in hand. So
Out of
I
interest,
start,
just to interrupt there, what kind of meditation did you get into initially?
that was a good question. I experimented with different types, obviously like transcendental, Zen, which I still kind of do now. A bit. I like Zen,
That's my
but
vibes
I
as
was
well.
yeah. I went between different like obviously fixed awareness, open awareness styles. I feel for me, fixed awareness meditation is a better one. I feel like if it's just open, like I just get I think just allowing everything to come in and out for me it's just not that great. Not in like a dark way or what's going to come in. I just get a bit too lost. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, to answer your question, so a bit of TD, a bit of Zen. I just kind of like worked with what works for me. I'm still now like 8 years later. I'm still working out what kind of meditation is best for me. But I just know I need to sit down like once, twice a day, and it's very. I don't need to, but I like to because it's very good for me. So yeah, I started that process, and obviously then like you have these existential crises, don't you? Or what's the meaning of everything? You know, like we've all been there, and then that having those kind of internal things going on is so like I thought I was having a spiritual awakening at the time. It's hard to kind of then go on the rugby field and start and try like take people's heads off. So I started to have this like dilemma where I wasn't getting that motivated to play anymore. I was really struggling because I had this other stuff going on in my life, which was like obviously chalk and cheese from what I did on the rugby field. And my role on the rugby field was like the enforcer of the team. I had to kind of like be like the bad guy almost who kind of like took care of their bad guy. You know, like so you know, like in hockey when you see people like fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, it wasn't as fingers that, but you'd have you know who their guy was, and you needed to get over the top of them early doors. So it just wasn't lining up, and my performance then started to suffer as a consequence. And I was only 29, like technically coming into my sorry, I would have been 28 at the time. As this going on, I was technically coming into to my prime. And at that time, I started to hear about the other side of breathwork, which can actually enhance performance. Obviously, the oxygen advantage, that kind of stuff. So that really intrigued me. So I started to delve in that a bit more. And then essentially lockdown happened. So lockdown happened, and where everyone, all the other teams, kind of obviously they were just doing the thing, and then once it come, I bought a van. I went down to Cornwall, and I got kicked out of Cornwall because I wasn't allowed to travel, but I was being a bit rogue. And when the things got lifted a little bit and teams were allowed to start playing again, and my team went bust, who I was playing for, they went bust. So all my teammates went to other clubs. I was like, this is my chance. I was like, this is my chance to get out. So I thought, fuck it, I'm staying in Cornwall. So I stayed in the van. I was I was working as a surf coach for for my friend down here who's got a surf school. I was landscape
Hang
guy.
on, rewind. How, at what point did you learn to surf? You're like Leeds, northern mining towns. At what point did you learn how to surf to be a surf
So
coach?
I did my training in Australia when I was younger.
Okay,
I lived in Australia playing rugby, so I did it all. I did it
okay.
all over there. I started surfing over there, and then in the off seasons, I'd go to kind of like Central America, the whole that surf scene over there. So I was doing that. So I was a keen surfer, not very good, but keen. Um, and so yeah, that's how that happened. So I started. I was surf coaching. I was landscape gardening because I just stopped, and I was obviously I needed to kind of live. So I was like, it was funny because I'd take people out, and if they were from Yorkshire, they knew who I was. So they'd be like, "Are you like someone who played for the Leeds Rhinos?" I was just like, "No, not me." And they were just laughing. So it was really funny. But I had such a sense of freedom with that. I was living in a van. I was living on a field, having fires every night. It was the most freeing I've ever felt. But then I was like, all right, well, I have to kind of I need some sort of money. I'm not ready. The retreats aren't where they want to be. I don't even know what to do with the retreats yet. And the breath work isn't where it needs to be. I was qualified, but I hadn't had any experience or anything like this. So I needed a few more years. So I went to France with rugby. I was playing in France whilst I was doing more training. I was developing the retreats and stuff. And then yeah, I came back and I was able to kind of start it off. So in this process of me stepping down from obviously like international rugby, I trying to build everything simultaneously. And I didn't retire when things were ready. I retired early because I was like, well, I need to retire and put my time into this, even though there was no money coming in or anything like that. I needed to take like a risk, a gamble. And that's what I did. That's what I did essentially. And like now, even now, I mean, it's just about like, where I want it to be, and I'm not, and I'm still got ambition going further, and there's lots of stuff to do, but yeah, it's taken years to kind of get to a place where I'm kind of comfortable, and like opportunities are coming now, thankfully. But yeah, it took like to walk away from like obviously high paying rugby salary and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite obviously I've skipped over quite a few things there, but it was quite a funny process. And I just wanted to come to Cornwall. I was like, I love Cornwall. I want to be here. So I thought I'm just going to come to Cornwall and I'm going to develop a life which allows me to stay in Cornwall, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I've built everything else around that.
At what point did the kind of transition happen? Because obviously, initially, you're doing it all in a completely non-selfish way. You're doing it for you. You're kind of investigating this new way of living, etc.
Yeah.
And then at what point did you think, oh, actually, I can have a greater effect on the world and I want to help other people? And then I guess, what did that look like now? Like, what do you want? What effect on the world would you want to have? Like, what would be the ultimate thing you're going towards?
It's a good question. So starting with the transition, it got to a point where, so after the France, Cornwall started a professional rugby league team. So I thought this is perfect. This gives me a chance to go there. I was coaching. I was like player coach. Obviously, get like an okay salary, but I told them, I said I've got retreats this year here, here, and here, and that was they were fine with it. So if I was like playing top level, that wouldn't have been okay. You can't do that. They tell you to shut up or rip your contract up. So the transition came probably like fully into this space. I'd say 2022, maybe yeah, 2022, and like because it was, I realized the retreats were kind of going well. I thought, okay, well this is me now. It's time to kind of fully step into this. And the second part of your question, I think like I said before, what we're trying to do with both sides. Obviously, I've got other little things going on, but like both sides is the retreat sort of brand. Sorry, is that's my passion. That's my passion project. Everything I'm doing, I'm passionate about. But this is like where I can feel like I can really make a difference in the world. And it is if creating kind of like because we've got a big community of men now. Obviously, after the retreats, we put on like reoccurring events, reoccurring retreats just for people who've been on before. We have like obviously free stuff as well, day like meetups. Like we got like over 100 guys in the group, and I I see if we've got like over 100 guys who are bought in to kind of promoting positive masculinity in their own communities and being trying to be like kind of like beacons of what it looks like to be a positive like integral compassionate man and what it looks like. So I'm going on a bit, but yeah, if I could be a part of something which kind of helps install new principles, or well, not new because it's the same, it's always been there, but reawaken the real integral definitions and characteristics of masculinity in men. So I like the so they can be the best versions for themselves and their family. I'm not talking about the old fashioned 50s husband who backhanded the wife. You know what I mean. I'm talking about like being strong, but also being compassionate, like being vulnerable, but also be like but having firm boundaries and not taking any shit. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the balance of both, isn't it? Knowing how to soften into the feminine when they need to integrate that into the life. So yeah, that's what I want to say. Me, I don't want people. I don't even care if it's me as Anthony. It's just like the whole collective, you know.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on how physicality ties into manliness? Like an ability to, where did I say it? It was something that a former guest, you might know, Mark Walsh, shared, who does a lot about kind of embodiment. Uh, and it was a meme that he shared, and it's like, oh no, I'm a peaceful man. I wouldn't ever hurt anyone, but I mean, I'm butchering this, but the idea is you can't call yourself a peaceful man and that you wouldn't hurt anyone if actually you couldn't hurt anyone because you're weak and you're not strong. And only you need to be able to protect the people that mean something to you. And you can only say that you are peaceful and in control if you're actually strong. In a sense, I've completely butchered that. Hope you
Yeah.
get a sense
No,
of it, what I'm trying to
no,
say.
I understand. I think that's quite Jordan Peterson-esque. I think.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's where it came from initially.
yeah. It's kind of like yeah. Obviously, you can't be like a peaceful man if that's your only choice. That's just like who you are. But obviously, if you're a cat, Jordan Peterson talks about if you are a dangerous man, but you act in a peaceful way, then you're really peaceful because you have the capacity to be dangerous, but you choose to be peaceful. So that's. I'm not saying I disagree or agree with that. I'm just saying that's kind of. But
Can
yeah,
I just do a comparison? That's just about watch the other day. It's completely unrelated, but it is though. It's a little bit similar concept. And someone saying like, "Oh, I'm a 40-year-old man. I would never cheat on my wife." And it's like, well, is anyone asking you? Are loads of women flirting with you that you're like in control over, and you're saying no, no, you're batting them
yeah, yeah,
away?
yeah,
But yeah, carry on. Sorry.
yeah. Yes, overwhelming temptation.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so for me, yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important, but not just for your general health to be physically strong. It's super important. But when I mention strength, I don't just mean like of the physical. I mean like strength of character, strength of will. You know what I mean? The ability to kind of set boundaries and kind of not follow the crowd and stay true to what you want to do. That's strength for me. So when I say strength, I don't always mean the physical, but I'm a massive component. As well as a breathwork, I'm a strength coach. So as well, like I'm a massive like advocate for general like strength and like keep like you say you did boxing, I did jiu-jitsu. I feel like to be able to kind of like look after yourself and take care of yourself is like super important. Like competent to feel competent. I think we have three kind of like needs and like well but more, but I think what I've read in psychology, where being competent, the feeling of competency is massive for our like sense of well-being and like an overall mental health. So knowing that you're competent is yeah, it's a really important thing.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's key. I remember a stage in my life, where I'd been a boxer. I was a heavyweight boxer, so I was boxing at like 100 plus kilograms, which I guess is technically super heavyweight back in the day. And then I, got really into yoga teaching, and I was doing yoga and boxing for a long time together. But when I started teaching full time and teaching like 26 classes a week, something had to go, and that was a lot of the boxing and like strength work. And I became small. I ended up being like 78 kilos at one point.
Wow.
And I remember like walking around cities teaching that I was unfamiliar with at night time, like after teaching a workshop, and feeling that like if something went down, I couldn't do anything about it.
Mm.
And that was actually really a horrible feeling. I'm not saying I've now got really big and strong again. I've got bigger certainly. I'm about 100 kilograms again, but not the same muscle mass that I used to have. But there is something to that I think it's so nice to feel that you can both defend yourself, look after yourself, but then also when you have people dependent on you, that you can look after them now. And
Totally.
that is key for me. And I've got two little boys, and we're traveling with them. I want to make sure like I can keep them safe. But we don't let's before we go down that route too much. There's lots of other stuff that you are doing, and yeah, I guess we've got limited time, so you can take your pick. Do you want to go deep into the pool stuff, or deep into the charity pool foundation you're trying to set up? You can do both.
Um,
We can do both. Your
we chat
choice.
about we can chat about the pool stuff if you like.
Mm.
Yeah.
So pool stuff wise, like when people see that, when I first saw it, I think from Richie, was when I first saw that kind of stuff. I just imagine that photo of Muhammad Ali, that like of him in a pool holding weights, and the story
Yeah.
behind it was he lied to the reporter in a very Muhammad Ali way and said, "This is how I train for resistance. I'm in a pool and I do boxing with weights in the pool." And he was taking the mick, and that's where my mind goes initially. Now I haven't tried it. I've seen you guys do it in person at Pelagonia. And shout out to the Pelargonian Post Week. But what is the idea behind it? What's the idea behind like doing weighted based stuff in pools? And you can maybe just explain a little bit what it actually is.
Yeah, for sure. And like when I so obviously I'm strength and conditioning like background as well. So when I first saw it, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like with weights, you're trying to acquire the right stimulus, and you need to have the right resistance, force, etc. Applied to so like, well, that doesn't make sense because the pool is not going to allow you to achieve the stimulus. So I was just thinking from like a sports science kind of brain. Um, so then you scratch the surface and you feel actually it's not about the weights. The weights are just a means to keep you underwater. So obviously, but you have to complete a task, whatever it may be. Say you got to go, you're doing something poolside, which is going to elevate your heart rate, and then you're going to go into an apnea. So you're going to do a dumbbell walk. So obviously, you've probably seen where I do it in the deep pool. So it's a lot different from probably where you see me and Richie doing it. It's a different animal. A lot more stuff you can do, and just the depth kind of brings a different psychological element to it. But anyway, so you do dumbbell carry into maybe dumbbell some squat jumps, and then you walk back. So in that movement, the weights are only there to keep you underwater, to allow you to do that. The weights aren't applying any other stimulus. So the stimulus that we're looking for is the stress response essentially. And what deep end fitness do I work for now? I'm working on expanding in England and Europe. It's a safe container to allow you to see how you respond in a stressful situation. In these confines, allow you to witness the internal narrative, the physiological response, and then work with it. And then you come back up. Well, because you're not under for that long, but then you come back up, you obviously then work on, obviously breathwork's a big part of it. You work on regulating yourself, bringing yourself down. So what you're doing is you're teaching people to access this part of your nervous system, the sympathetic part of your nervous system, But there's different branches to that, as you'll be aware. Everyone talks about like restoration, parasympathetic. That's all great. We need that, but you also need the sympathetic nervous system, or you're not getting out of bed in the morning. But also, when you're in that higher state of sympathetic arousal, you've got two responses. You've got a threat response, and you've got a challenge response. And if you and the thing that dictates which way you go is your internal dialogue and the appraisal of the stressor. And that's unconscious. That you don't stop and think, do I have the resources to meet demand? You don't. You automatically make that decision. Your nervous system does. So if there's a challenge presenting to you, say it's an actual real life challenge, obviously, as you know, thoughts can elicit the same response, but say it's a real life challenge and something happened and shit's about to hit the fan. The difference between you thinking, all right, I've got what I can do this, and I'm going to respond better. I'm going to respond more adaptive, more problem solving. I'm going to get this done, opposed to being more withdrawn and dissociative is like how well you believe your resources are matched to deal with the situation. So if you believe you've got the means to meet it, you will respond better. But again, this needs to be trained. This isn't something that just it's not something that just well, it does just happen. But it can happen the obviously more negative way. So we're trying to allow people to access this challenge response to the nervous system and then be able to tap into the parasympathetic as quick as they can. So the regulated, obviously the back to that recovery state. Yeah, so if I had to kind of sum it up, it's stress inoculation training essentially, and you're teaching people how to utilize stress. So we all see stress as a bad thing. Well, obviously we'd be blobs without it. We wouldn't have evolved to humans. So it's like, how do we utilize stress as an awareness? Sorry, as a resource, and that is what we're trying to do. Obviously, you've got all the other stuff. You've got the CO2 tolerance training, etc., which you'll be aware of. That's obviously a big part of it as well. Obviously, teaching like general, like basic breath work, basic movements, the movement patterns. So you can kind of combine it all together. And yeah, teaching yourself how to use that top down control over kind of what's going on in the body. Yeah, so if I had to kind of sum it up in a few minutes, I'd say that's the meat and bones of it.
Is it similar to the concept of parts of like flow state, where your ability to deal with something meets the challenge, and it's that sweet spot where it just about meets the
Yeah.
challenge that's faced? Is that kind of what's going on at times?
Yeah, can't yeah, I kind of. It's not the we don't say you're going to access flow state necessarily, but what you just said is obviously correct. Yeah, one of the definitions of flow, isn't it, is of where your skill set matches what it is you're doing, and even if you believe it's a little bit maybe a little bit out of your depth, that kind of potential for growth and possibility allows that flow, doesn't it? So yeah, it's similar. And obviously, if you are under the water and you're tapped in, you're focused, you've got the right mindset to complete this drill. You are pretty much in flow, I suppose, because everything's still, everything's quiet, and yeah, you're just acting, you just but in a rational way.
Well, I love the sound of that. It reminds me, maybe it's a bad comparison, of those cave divers that are
Yeah,
in a very highly stressful situation. I don't know if you see that documentary of the ones that saved those boys from the cave, and that was a one time that
no,
they that it was so it was I think it's National Geographic, so it's on Disney maybe, but it's everyone is trying to rescue those boys from the cave in Thailand or like, and
yes, I
these
remember
kind
this.
of like what would you appear to be like very geeky, slight Englishmen came along and rescued them like they were heroes, and they were like the most
Yeah,
experienced cave divers in the world, and all of them had experienced bullying as children. Uh, and
right.
all of them found like that darkness, that close off where they were just with the challenge to be the most peaceful place in the world.
Hmm.
Really, really interesting. Let's do some quick fires now. Let's do a few little
Go.
quick fires. Right, so you coach a lot of elite performers, Olympic athletes, FTSE 100 executives. If
Yeah.
you could go back and coach yourself at your maybe like 23 years old, what are the tools that you would give yourself in short?
Wow, great question. Patience, patience, definitely. Like, don't rush. I don't need to rush to be where I'm always going to get where I want to be, exactly where I want to be. Um, not care so much about what people think. I used to really care about how people perceive me. So obviously you need to care a bit, or we'd be sociopaths if we didn't have no care what people thought. But like not let that affect me. Um, and just chill out, mate. Just
Hmm.
chill the fuck out.
Now, what misconceptions do you think people have of you, like when they see you or just see you briefly on social media?
Like right now,
Yeah, if they just saw you now, yeah.
misconception. Uh, Good question. I never thought about that.
That's quite good. That's quite that's quite a good mental sign that you don't really think about what people think of you, which is it's quite good that you
yeah,
haven't had that reflection.
yeah. No, I don't.
I've got to
Yeah,
put it in your head now.
yeah. I know. I don't. I'm gonna have to skip on that, mate.
Good.
Yeah, I
That
can't
is a
see.
sign of a well-adjusted human being. Uh, how do you decide what's worth your time?
How to what? Sorry.
How do you decide what is worth your time? Like, you've got so many projects going on. I'm sure so many
Oh
people
yeah,
trying to pull you in different directions, and
yeah,
that will only get worse, as your notoriety expands. Like, how do you decide what's actually worth your time?
yeah. Again, it's going to sound really cliche, but obviously, just like guided from like me intuition and like my heart. So I was never really good at kind of listening to me gut when I was younger. I never really understood what that meant. I didn't really have my interoceptive relationship with my internal environment wasn't the best. So I kind of I go off what excites me, and but also where is the impact? You know what I mean? Obviously, I've got to do stuff for money as well, but also it's like where how much of a positive impact can I have? I'm not gonna lie and say that makes all my decisions because it doesn't. Obviously, money is a part of it, but like money only gets me so far. I'm not. Otherwise, I'd live in London. Do you know what I mean? I'd be and then no disrespect to people who live in London. I just mean like I'd make a lot more money living in London. Do you know what I mean? So
And then
like
spend, but then spend a lot more money.
yes,
You wouldn't have
exactly.
your big echoey lounge.
Yes, definitely not. So yeah, just I'm guided by excitement and the potential of of impact. That's what guides me.
Nice. And you seem to be someone that's constantly acquiring new skills and maybe exploring new habits. Is there anything you're trying to like integrate into your life at the moment or learn about at the moment on the side?
I want to learn I want to learn more languages.
Oh, really? Which one?
Yeah,
Which one would be your go-to?
I want to play guitar as well. But language, I would have said probably. I used to live in France, so I learned a bit of French. But I think I've got a bit of work coming up over the next year or so in Italy. So I think I'm going to learn a bit of Italian this year. So away from so for example I'm certifying people this weekend to become deep end fitness instructors, and that's the first time I've been in that certification role as obviously the assessor, etc. So that's taken up a lot of my headspace at the minute in terms of being as prepared as I can for this with training weekend and stuff. So that's like a big kind of practical like academic, not to say academic, but you know what I mean, like theory style
Mm.
um training. But yeah, on the other side, just more like light-hearted, gentle stuff is yeah, like learn guitar and maybe learn Italian.
Nice, nice. I always find that I dated an Italian for years, and I tried to learn Italian, but then every time I go there, it was just far easier for people to speak to me in English. And
Right.
even though the young people, they were just like they wouldn't even, but they say, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
cool," and then just like want to carry on. But I guess
Save it.
if you go to like rural places, it's wonderful. Now, where can people find you? What you got going on?
So you can find me on probably my Instagram is Mullally, my name, 91, line 91. My website is www.anthonymullally.com.
It looks
Yeah,
nice.
so
It looks slick. I remember when you launched it. It looks good looking
thank you, mate.
website.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a good friend who's a great graphic designer, so it was very helpful. But yeah, they're the two main places you'll find me.
And anything like upcoming that people can kind of join you at.
Yeah, I've got there's a pretty nice hotel that I work with in Cornwall called the Scarlet Hotel. We've got some kind of like day stuff coming up soon, day workshops. So I think you'll be able to find it on the Scarlet website. But obviously you've got the pool training sessions, which are like you can find pool training sessions in Newquay. soon to be Plymouth as well, and we are gonna come into London. So if you want to get involved, hopefully next month I might be there to run a demo
Nice.
session. So get him. It's a 3.7 meter deep pool. So yeah, you can get yourself involved.
As a side note, how keen are companies who own pools to let you bring weights into their pool? Is that ever an obstacle like, that requires
But
like heavy persuasion?
that's the biggest obstacle. That is the obstacle. No, not necessarily the weights, but just kind of what it is we're doing. They see it and they don't understand it. They don't realize it's kind of like very physiologically informed. There's like shitloads of safety protocol, but they just like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. But it's growing here, it's going to grow into London, and I feel like once it's in a bit more of like the psyche of the consciousness, I feel like they'd be more receptive to let us do. But right now, yeah, that is our main roadblock.
I wonder, just as a side note, like in terms of space, like using like movie studio pools. Like I remember, look, there was one in Bulgaria that I worked with, not the pool, but it was a studio that had a big pool,
Yeah,
used for filming. And I wonder if
right.
they'd be up for it, like small studios that have like a deep pool for filming. I'm sure because they're used to heavy gear.
If you have any contacts,
Well,
send it me after this.
I'll send you some Bulgarian contacts later. Right, we'll call it a day on the recording. Thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Honestly unbalanced.